And welcome, everybody. I am live in Dallas, Texas. I had to think about, okay, what airport am I in right now? I'm heading up to the Bible Baptist College annual conference, actually, right now. I'm going to be speaking tonight there in Missouri. And so if you're around there in a couple hours, maybe we'll check you out and see you there. I'm excited today because today's roundtable is presented by Akeem Smith, who is not only a personal friend, but one of the disciples that were made at Southern Hills. Akeem's story is incredible because it began going door to door where Pastor Fred Murray met Akeem, went back a couple times, eventually brought Akeem, and Akeem is one of the great men that have been produced at Southern Hills by the work of God. And we're so proud of him. We love him. And that's not why he's speaking to you today, not just because we're proud of him. He's speaking to you today because he knows what it is to step by step disciple and bring people into the congregation to see numeric growth. And I'm excited because he's done that at Southern Hills. Whenever he was working here at Southern Hills, now he's doing that in Oakland as he's planted the church there. So it's really exciting to see. And I'm excited to hear what he has to say to our group today. But more on him in just a moment. Welcome to each and everybody. We are so glad that you could be with us and looking forward to a great conversation in the roundtables today. Joe Smith has been a friend of mine for quite some time now. And Joe actually was just at our church, last week or so. We went out to lunch, had some good food. And he's going to open us up in a word of prayer. Joe, could you lead us in a word of prayer at this time?
Yeah, sure. Lord, we're thankful for these men, thankful for their dedication and service to you. And Lord, I pray that you be with Akeem now. I pray that you guide his words, give him clarity of thought, and that, Father, we could take the ideas that would pertain to our individual ministries and move them forward for your honor and glory. I'm so thankful for the Idea Network. I pray, Lord, that you would encourage each person here today. For it's your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Joe. Welcome, everyone. We're glad that you guys are here with us today. One thing I'd ask you to do is in the chat, if you could put your name and the church that you're with, that would help us make good use of our attendance as we mark that each week. Thanks for doing that. Thanks to all of you guys for being here. Josh has already introduced Akeem. Before we hand it over to him, I want to kick it to Kylie just to give us an update on our LGBTQ webinar that we're going to be doing. Kylie, if you just want to give us some info about that and how all of us can register for it, that'd be great.
Absolutely. So I kind of went into detail last week about the webinar, so I won't do that again this week. If you missed that, go ahead and watch the replay. Hopefully you're watching the replays anyway, because last week's conversation was awesome. Great content there. But for those of you who maybe missed it, it's going to be amazing. It is a paid webinar for everyone, but for our members, it is completely free. So I've put the webinar link in the chat a couple times here. You can register for the webinar for free using code INMembers. I'll put that in the chat as well for you. But totally free for you guys under individual registration. So go ahead and hop on there and reserve your spot. There is a lot more to the webinar than just the actual webinar itself. There's a lot of resources to download. There will be links to sponsors and discounts to other resources as well. So it's very full. There's also a networking aspect to the webinar. So say you're on there early or in between a session and you want to connect with someone, you can go onto the networking tab and connect with other people, other delegates that are on the webinar as well. So there is a networking and community aspect. As we, Idea Network, we love community and we love connecting different ministry leaders together and helping you guys make friends and connections in ministry. So there's another opportunity for that there. But for you guys, it's free. And so take advantage of that. Go ahead and register. Let us know that you're coming. And share it, please. This is such valuable information. We really want to get this information out, and so many ministries have questions about this, and they need answers. And we have our speakers, our firsthand experiences they have firsthand experiences. 3 of them are former LGBTQ members who have been saved and redeemed out of that lifestyle. And we also have a lawyer who will be speaking about how we can protect ourselves as ministries in light of everything that's happening in our society around this topic. So a lot of very valuable information and totally free to you guys. So please go ahead and register, let us know that you're coming, and then share this. And I said this last week, and I genuinely mean it. If you know of someone who would want to have access to this webinar, but can't pay the $17.99 for themselves or the $49.99 for their team, please just shoot me their email. They don't have to do anything. I'll send them a code and give them free registration. This is such a need in our society right now. We genuinely want to get this information out to everyone who needs it. So please let me know if there is anyone like that, and we'll gladly give them a free link. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you, Jason.
Cool. Thanks, Kylie. Josh has already introduced our speaker today, Akeem Smith, pastor Storyline Church in the San Francisco, Oakland Bay area, and we're glad to have him with us today. Akeem, thanks for being with us. I'll let you take it from here.
Thanks, Jason. Looking forward to being a part of this conversation today. I am in downtown Oakland with Storyline Church here at our building. And so it is Oakland, so you might hear like some sirens and stuff drive by. It's fine. I'm fine. We're going to be okay. I just want to let you know just ahead of time. But man, I'm excited about this conversation. This is something that I want to share today. For me, it's something that I'm currently working on and working towards to get better. And so that's kind of my promise to you. Whenever I part of these conversations, it's always something that I'm currently working through. It's not something I'm an expert at, but something that I'm growing and developing and becoming better at. Right? The food's always better when it's hot. Do you know what I mean? Like when mom's making food and it's done, it's always better when it's hot. And so like it's hot for me right now, right? This is something that I'm currently developing, working on, and getting better. So that as we kind of come together in these conversations, like you get to have it right off the conveyor belt, if you will. And so the conversation we're talking about today is about first-time guests and how to attract and get more first-time guests. Before we get into the discussion, I do want to share just kind of a biblical approach to it. The scriptures in Corinthians, I believe it's in chapter 3. We'll get to verse 4 or verse 2, chapter 4. But Paul is talking about the church of Corinth, and they're talking about division in the church and all these different things that are happening with some water, some plant, but God gets the increase, right? And then he like switches the analogy, goes to this building analogy. He's like, but Christ is the chief cornerstone of the church, but the church is God's building. And Jesus being the foundation. And so, but then in chapter 4, verse 2, he kind of gives like this, in my opinion, the best kept secret. The best kept secret on guaranteeing first-time guests to walk through your doors, right? For more people to call your church home, be a part of your membership. He gives the best kept secret. And it's in verse number 2. He says, moreover, it is required of stewards that they be found trustworthy. I believe that's the best kept secret of securing first-time guests to walk through your doors, but also people to call your church home in your membership, in your partnership classes, is that a steward be found trustworthy. Let me ask you this question. If God sent you more people, would you be found trustworthy? Right? Like worthy of more trust, right? Could he trust you with 30 first-time guests? Right? Could he trust you with 100 people? Could he trust you with volunteers? Right? Could he trust you with a community group of leaders? Could he trust you with the Easter crowd? Right? If he brought the Easter crowd back the following Sunday, right, post the petting zoo, do you know what I mean? Like, could he trust you with those people? Here's just my hunch, right? See. We would say that's not realistic. Like, if God bringing back the Easter crowd the following Sunday, that's not realistic, right? Those people only show up once or twice a year. There's no way they're going to keep coming back. And I do want to be realistic in the sense that like, there is one percentage, there's a percentage of those people that will only show up once or twice a year. But there's also a percentage of people, and according to our statistics, it's about 30%, right? From this past Easter specifically, it's about 30% of those people that are looking for a church. And for one reason or another, they love your church. Like, they love that you don't wear skinny jeans, right? They love that you preach from the King James, or they love that your worship style is blended, right? For one reason or another, they love your church, but they've decided not to come back. And I would say the reason that I'm suggesting is that, can God trust us with more? Here's my hunch, right? It may be too early, but the amount of people that we saw return the following Sunday is the amount of people God believes he can trust you with. I'll say that again, right? The amount of people that we saw return the following weeks of Easter is the amount of people God believes he can trust you with. Is that too soon? Right? So let me give you like this analogy, then we'll get into a couple things. If my computer is currently sitting on this tabletop, it's about maybe 30 inches by 30 inches, maybe 2 feet by 2 feet. If I took a dump truck, right? Follow me. If I took a dump truck and backed it up to this table, a dump truck full of sand, and I want to get as much sand from the dump truck onto this table, right? The amount of sand that I could fit on this table is not limited to the truck, right? It's a big truck, y'all, right? There's a lot of big trucks out there, right? The amount of sand that I could fit onto this table is not limited by the sand, right? There's a lot of sand out there, y'all, right? But the amount of sand that I could fit onto this table, come on, do you know what it is, right? It's the capacity of the table. It's one thing, right? It's limited by one thing. It's the capacity of the table. And listen to me, God is a good steward, right? And he will not bring more sand to your table if you can't handle the growth. And so the question becomes, right? Do you want more first-time guests? Do you want more volunteers, right? Do you want more community group leaders? Do you want more leaders? Do you want a leadership team? All those things, right, are important. But the question becomes, how do we expand the capacity of the table in a way that would ensure that God can trust us with more? I jotted down about 5 things. I want to give you one today, and if I come back, I'll give you the other ones. But here's the one thing that I've jotted down. And as I give you this one thing, it's going to also come with the guiding principle and practice that also flows through all 5 of these things. Here's the guiding principle that I want to give you. Is this idea of, some people call it SOP, right? Standard operating procedures. So for us at Storyline, a big thing in our culture, both in our church, but also in our community, in our city, is that of community. Community is uber important for us. Like, there's 2 groups of people here. People that are moving in to Oakland and the Bay Area, the San Francisco Bay Area, and there's people that are moving out. It's people that are moving in because of a new job, a new career path, education at UC Berkeley. They're moving for a dream that they're chasing, right? Some field, some tech job of that nature, right? They're moving in for that reason. And they're leaving behind all their friendships, all their community, the previous contacts and relationships, and they're coming to a new city. And then the second group of people are people that are moving out. These are people that are moving out because of the index and cost of living here is high, and so they're being priced out. And so the people that call Oakland and the Bay Area home are like moving out of the city into more suburban areas where it's less expensive. So when they leave, they also leave people behind. They leave friends behind. They leave family behind. And so there's people here that are displaced that don't have community, right? So there's those 2 groups of people moving in and moving out, and they are all looking for authentic authentic, refreshing, life-giving community, whether they're church or not. And so that's our context. So for us to create a space where people feel that it's refreshing, feel that it's innovative, feel that it's life-giving, that it's authentic, it's huge and uber important to the growth of our church. And I would say it's important for us in such a way that God can entrust us with more, right? If we can build a community here that people feel like it's home, then God can entrust us with more. This is how we expand the capacity of the table. This is just one part of the table, right? One corner of the table is this idea of community. And so here's the guiding principle that I want to give you before we transition here. The guiding principle is this idea of a standard operating procedure. I like to say it like this when it comes to creating community. And we'll discuss this in our breakouts. But an undocumented standard is an opinion. But a documented standard becomes an objective. Does that make sense? Right? An undocumented standard, it's an opinion, but a documented standard becomes an objective. What do I mean? Okay. Let's say I'm walking with 4 or 5 potential community leaders that I've seen, right? Or that can lead what we call them as crews. They're leading a small group. So I've identified them, which means I've had this, what I call an I see in you conversation. So I see in you potential to be a leader, specifically in the context of community. You're attractive, people like you, you walk up, you light up the room, right? You're relatable, you're honest, you have good charisma. And so I've identified them and I've had that conversation with them, and I'm walking with them of how to lead a particular community group, a small group. So as I'm leading them to developing them how to lead a community group, and I tell so-and-so, right now, his name's Juan, I'm walking with Juan. I tell Juan, I say, Juan, hey, if you're gonna lead a community group and you walk into a church on Wednesday, we have groups that meet at coffee shops, we have groups that meet at people's homes, some meet at the church. And if Juan comes and he sets up for his crew and he walks into the church building, there is 10 different ways you can set up chairs, right? You can set up for a meeting. You know what I mean? Like it's a leadership meeting. You can set up for a leadership meeting, a team meeting. You can set it up for church on Sunday, or you can set it up like this, right? There's several different ways you can set up a group. If I tell Juan, hey Juan, can you come to church on Wednesday at 6:30 p.m., 45 minutes before your crew start? I need you to set up chairs. He gets there and he set up the chairs, and I show up. And I see Juan leading a crew, and it's set up like church. It's like, well, that's not how you lead a community group, right? And how often do we do this to leaders? Do we do this to volunteers? We tell them, hey, go get us a rock, and they come back and bring you a rock. You're like, no, not that one, another rock. And they come back like, well, I want to get you the rock you want. Just tell me what you want. It goes back to the principle, right? An undocumented standard is an opinion, but a documented standard becomes an objective, right? We've got to have these standards for people to be able to lead life-giving community groups, right? If you're a leader and you're leading a crew or a small group, or you're leading, you're a director over specifically small groups, or you're a leader of small groups, or you're a member of small groups, your experience all depends on those standards that's already been in place, because regardless if it's been communicated, there is a standard. Right? And people feel the standards. And so let me just give you just a quick backdrop of this documented standard when it comes to community here at Storyline, and then we're going to jump into your breakout sessions. Jason, would you allow me to share my screen?
Should give you the option to now. Can you see it?
Let's see. No, I don't see it actually.
Down at the bottom on share screen, I'm allowing
It's
you.
probably an operator error. Okay, yeah, here we go. Pulling it up now. All right. All right. Can we see this? Yeah? Perfect. All right, so here is a documented standard. Right? This is what it takes to be able to lead an effective crew, right? As you're identifying people that are potential leaders, you create a standard for them, and then you release them. For us, this standard is just a way, what we call is just champion the culture. Right? What does it mean to champion the culture at Storyline when it comes to leading a crew, right? This is our vision and our purpose statement. You all have a vision and a purpose statement, right? Put it into a document to help leaders know the vision. And this is what we call our Storyline 9. This is our core values at our church. This is what you feel, the intangibles that you feel when you walk into any environment that we're going to create. That's a part of this document. We have what we call these axioms, right? We're mad about growing as a leader. We're coaching always. We're being coached. We celebrate constantly. We value often, right? We evaluate often. These are just some axioms for these leaders to be able to hit. Like what are they going to hit as they're coming onboarding to becoming a leader? And then these are the wins within a specific crew. Like when you walk away from 7 o'clock to 8:30 and you're done, like, what are the people supposed to feel? What are they supposed to expect? Rich hospitality, right? We want to create warm and inviting conversations, right? For us, crews work by seasons, right? There's on-ramps and off-ramps, right? December is an off-ramp, and January is an on-ramp all the way to April. April, they off-ramp, and then they come back, right? So sometimes what we had in the past, we have leaders that we've empowered to lead a crew, and they don't take breaks, right? And what we say is we don't break from relationships, we just break from crew. Right, and so they don't take breaks, and by the time the summer comes, the crew is like disassembled, like they're gone. They're nowhere to be found because they haven't followed the procedure. So we work in seasons, right? Create warm, inviting conversations, growing rich spiritually, and then creating this guide, this expectation guide for those crew leaders. What we call is a crew captain catch-up. This is a quarterly event that takes place with leaders, and so I have the director being myself currently that's leading this position for crew. So what I'll do is every quarter I'll meet up with all the crew leaders, and we'll have crew captain catch up. Hey, what was the win in your crew? What was the difficulty? What curriculum did you go through? What was the big one? What was the big takeaway? How can we make it better, right? And share best practices. As I mentioned before, ICNU conversations. And then we had them sign this commit to this agreement letter that they have to commit to. And then another big piece here is just create an excellent crew experience. What does that look like? And then we have just these different components that make crew what it is. One component being there's a leader always present to lead this and facilitate the discussion. Number two, there's a host who open up their home for meetups, right? Whether it's the church or a coffee shop or their house. There's three. There's a co-lead who's responsible for coordinating food and communication within the groups, right? These are just the components that make the burden of leadership, of leading a crew, possible. We split it between 3 people. And this is also another way, part of the pipeline, to be able to develop more crew leaders that you identify with that man. You've been leading alongside me. Well, I see in you this, right? And we now put them through this process of becoming a crew leader. And so I'll scroll down just very quickly to show you what that looks like, and then we'll jump into breakouts. Apprentice the Storyline crew leader, right? Once you've had those conversations with people, here just the process, right? And what I do is I essentially, after I've created this doc, I hand this over to that crew leader, and he, after having ICEU conversation with a potential crew leader, he walks with them or her through this document and give them the SOP, the standing operating procedures of how to lead a crew, and we now begin to fast track them onto becoming a crew leader, which would require them going through a season of crew and then getting them ready to release them, right? So here's the thing. I'll stop sharing my screen now. Right, we created this document, this document procedure for people to be able to lead crews. And here, this is the reason why we created, and this is one of the other 4 or 5 things that we'll talk about in the future. It's because of this idea of leadership. That is, we want to relationally and a repeatable process by which we equip and empower leaders to release and influence them for everything God's made them to be. Right? And if we have a document that says, here's the boundaries of how you do that, isn't it so much more easier for us to just empower them to be able to lead, right? And this is just one area. Man, if we expand the table, God can trust you with more. For us, it's community. Like if we expand the table of community and make it better, make it bigger, then, right, as Steve talked about a few weeks ago, right, small church excellence, making those things better, then we believe God's going to entrust us with more people, right? So if he can entrust us with more people, then we'll see first-time guests. We'll see people on board to volunteers. We see people on board to community groups. We see people grow in their leadership capacity. But these are just, this is just the one way to which we can do that. Jason, I'm done. We can jump into the breakout discussion questions.
Cool. Thanks, Akeem. Really appreciate you sharing that. It's super practical. And I'd love to get that document that we can throw onto our resource page this week. Very helpful stuff. Hey, in the chat, I just added the discussion questions. I'll go over them briefly, and then we will split up into our breakout rooms. What structure do you currently have in place for creating small groups? Name 2 or 3 of your biggest challenges in creating community through small groups. Write them down as a group. Identify possible solutions to help a group member overcome his or her challenges. And then who are 3 non-staff people you can share your vision with for creating culture and system for small groups. We're going to break out into discussion, and then we'll come back here to the main room in just a minute.
All right, what's up, guys? How's everybody doing? You doing all right? Sweet. Well, hopefully you got something out of the talk this afternoon. And of course, Akeem has a great vision and great passion, I think, with just reaching their area. And I think we all can learn some truths that, man, just basically comes down to stewardship, right? Stewarding the guests that comes our way and stewarding them through that avenue of small groups. So let's jump right into it, jump into the questions. Number 1, what structure do you currently have in place for creating small groups and really kind of that community within the small groups? Anybody want to go first and let us know kind of what your game plan is, what you have set up, and how you guys approach the small groups and creating community there? Not everybody at first. Don't fight over who's going first. All right. I know it's only 11:30 here. So. Larry?
Yeah, hey, I got to be honest with you. We're in the process of transitioning from just traditional style of Thursday night. The main group is the group. Sunday morning, we have an extra group. We're transitioning into that group setup where we have the smaller groups. And I have this question for Akeem or for anybody in here. What is the most critical part of transitioning from what everybody is used to in a calendared, we know exactly when it is, it's always there, to these small group settings where they're coming and going, topics change, lots of different groups to plug into? What's the transition point Right now, we're trying to get leaders in place and prepared to lead these groups. And so that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah, it's a great thought, great question. Anybody have you got an answer for Larry on that?
Larry, are you talking about like a traditional, like a midweek service transition to like more of a life group throughout the week model?
Absolutely. We want to have something going on all the time, but right now we just have midweek study. And so,
Yeah, I've been at Oasis for almost 5 years, and when I came on staff, we were already doing the life group model. So I can't answer exactly what was taking place, but one thing I do know is find the people that are like wanting to keep Wednesday night as that sacred cow and win them over. Like basically share with them your heart on it as to why you want to make the transition. But at the same time to make things more personal. We were designed to live in community and relationship with each other. We're going through a lot of self-evaluation in our life groups and looking at switching some of them up, because if they get too large, they're mini churches and almost like another Wednesday night somewhere. And our pastor's actually talking with some friends, redoing that stuff. So if you have like a potential critic, I hate to like give you that answer, but like try to win those leaders over, those movers and shakers within the body that might be like, no, bless God, we got to do Wednesday night. You know, in reality, you're taking 2 service days and turning it into multiple, if you have life groups on multiple nights. So that's one way to look at it.
Yeah, Chris, what do you got, man?
So I've got a question because I'm kind of in the same boat. So what we're going to do, and I don't know if this is right or wrong, and I'm kind of curious as to who has started life groups, but what we're going to do this summer is instead of meeting at the church, because right now we're running about 15 to 25 on Wednesday nights. So what we're thinking about doing is just having everybody come to our house, having it set up around our family room, and having questions from the service on Sunday, and kind of start that way. I don't know if there's a right way or wrong way, but I just don't know who to ask as, you know, if that's a good idea or what they would do.
Yeah, no, these are good thoughts. I know I'm leading the discussion, but I'll throw out some things because Larry, we actually just did all of this. We've been working on it from 2017. Of course, we started the church in 2011, and we had just your typical Sunday morning, Sunday night, midweek was Thursday services, Sunday school on Sunday mornings. I think in 2013, 2014, we began kind of some transitions. And in 2015 and 2016, we went into what we called in-home fellowships. So quarterly, we took our Sunday nights and we'd not have a Sunday night service. We would have an in-home fellowship with your life group or your Sunday school class. And so everybody would go to that teacher's house. And we did that for 2017 and 2018, just to kind of build the idea of your life group community. And then in 2019, my dad, he was still alive at the time, we came up with this great plan to transition everything in 2020. Of course, then 2020 happened and we canceled everything for a little bit. And then we didn't start back up Sunday school for, actually, we didn't start back up Sunday school for about a year. And then we decided we aren't even going to start up Sunday school. We just changed our service time on Sunday mornings. And then we used our midweek for our Sunday school. So in the beginning of 2021, we did electives that people could go to all at the church on one night. And then in the middle of 2021, we had this plan that we were working on for the last 3.5 years up to that point. And so in the middle and end of 2021, we launched the idea of our small groups. And so now, well, at the beginning of the year, we had a group on Tuesday, a group on Wednesday, or 2 groups on Wednesday, and then 2 groups on Thursday that people could go to. They were all in life stages. So we had, Clubhouse Kids, we had teenagers, and then we had our 18 to 30-year-olds, anybody in that category, 30 to 55-year-olds, and then 55 and older. So we had 5 groups counting kids and teens. And we did like a 6-week study, and then we all came back together on a Thursday night, which was when our normal service was. And we had a big pizza party and tell us something you learned from the study. And then we broke back up for 6 weeks. And then we came back together for 2 weeks on Wednesday night at 6:30. And we kind of bounced it around a little bit. And I agree with what Dan said. What I did is I just kind of won over in 2019 and 2020. I won over the people that I felt like were looking at Sunday school as that sacred cow or that midweek service. And most of them are 55 and older, which we would call we call them the recycled teenagers at our church. And so they do activities all the time. I just went to one of their luncheons and I pitched this idea of, we think this is going to help with growth. It's going to help with seeing people saved and like the overall vision of what we were doing. And in all honesty, everybody at that lunch were like, oh, this is going to be awesome. That'll be really cool. Yeah, we like it. And we started doing it, and it just became something now that everybody seems to love, and it built that community with that. So I know it's kind of a longer answer, but that's what we did. And Larry, I have it all written up that I've sent out to some guys. So if you Facebook message me or something and give me your email address or phone number, I'll send it over to you. So kind of the program we did. But anybody else? Jason, you were going to add some thoughts on that. What structure do you currently have in place for creating small groups? I know you threw something in, Jason. Apparently Jason left us, so that's all right. James, you got any thoughts on this, or Steve, anything?
Well, we have life groups at our church. They've been pretty solid for a while, but we also still have our Wednesday night service. So we have a Wednesday night prayer meeting on Wednesday night, and Tuesday night we have men's and women's life groups, and they're just divided that way on purpose. So we have groups of men, groups of women that meet. Thursday night is more of a doctrinal life group. And then Friday, we have a kind of an active life group that they do with crafts. They talk about the Bible as they do crafts and stuff like that. Then we still have a life group out during Sunday school on Sunday morning where we have different topics, doctrine and philosophy, new beginnings, that kind of stuff. So we still have a Sunday school hour, and we still have a Wednesday night, but we have other classes during the week that meet.
Now, do you lead all of those, or do you have other people set in place to lead them?
I teach a doctrine and philosophy class.
Yeah.
And but everything else is run by laymen, and one is taught by my associate, but mostly church members run all those classes.
Yeah. And this is totally off subject, but your brother and your content, like your brother does the teacher stuff, it's just hilarious, dude. It makes me laugh all the time.
Good, I'm glad.
Yeah, anyway. Hey, let's do this. Let's go to that second question real quick. Name 2 or 3 of your biggest challenges to creating community through small groups. You guys got those? Maybe what's a couple struggles you've been having? I know probably ours right at first would have been buy-in, trying to get everybody on board within the age groups, like to see this is beneficial for you. But once we did, man, we doubled in our Sunday school or midweek attendance when we started doing it that way. So what's 2 or 3 of your guys' biggest challenges in creating
when we started
small groups?
When we started life groups, the biggest challenge was getting people involved, but it's about a 2 or 3 year process before it becomes a mainstay in your church. So if you think you're going to get life groups started and it's going to go right off the bat, it's just not going to happen. We thought that. We thought, oh man, well, we're different. We'll be able to get it done quick. And then no, it was still a 2 or 3 year process before it became a mainstay. Our problem now, though, is now that life groups is established, is not getting them too big, because life groups can only get so big before they fizzle. They grow and they'll go through waves. And if you don't split when you get to a wave and make multiple life groups, then it's going to go down. You're going to lose people. So it just, like someone said earlier, it becomes another church service. So that's our biggest issue right now is we don't have anyone else. We have so many life groups. We don't have anyone else that can really lead. So we're in the training process of new leadership right now for more life groups.
Yeah, I think that's probably everybody's right. Biggest challenge is like training people and getting people on board. Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Steve, Chris, Jason, you guys got some challenges? Larry? Steve, I think you want to talk, but never mind. Steve left us. Man, we're down 2. Sheesh.
Well, I'll answer then. One of our biggest challenges is in getting the leadership to commit to those seasons. As Akeem put it, our seasons wouldn't even be that long. We were looking at something like yours, where it's 6 weeks on, a couple of weeks off, just to get us started until people had that ability. Plus, we're in a strange seasonal setup here, where during the summertime, most everybody's in and out of our valley because it's like 120 degrees. where our senior citizen folks, they can't travel as much. They want early morning, and the young people want late evening. And so we're trying to find that sweet spot for these groups to launch into, for them to get at least get their feet on the ground.
Yeah, Jason.
I can weigh in here. So we do our small groups, and the seasonal thing about it that we love is I actually lead all of our small groups. As far as a ministry, we've got like 25 different groups right now. And the toughest thing for me is finding leaders that want to engage on that level, because it's very intimate. It's super close. And so we've got leaders who, we'll do a season where we start in August, right around school, and we'll be done right before Thanksgiving. And we break for Thanksgiving, Christmas. And then season 2, that's our fall session. Season 2 is our winter session, where we go January, basically to the middle of March. And then we have a couple sign up periods, and then we go rest of March, April, May, and then we break for the summer. We don't do any groups in the summer because, like Larry said, people are going on vacation. There's missions trips, there's youth camp. It's hard to find any continuity in the summer. So seasonally, we don't do sermon review questions. We don't have official groups, and we really encourage our leaders and hosts to take a break in the summer. My biggest frustration is I'll find a good leader, and I'll find a good host, and I'll find a good group of people. And then they just want to be like a clique where they don't ever want to break up. They don't ever want to reach out. And so I'll have some groups that have a leader and a host, and then they'll have 4 to 6 other couples in that group who could all lead or host another group to help reach more people. And they're like, nah, we're good. We want to stay with what we got. And so I think the problem is developing new leaders. So I've only been able to do this a couple times, but I'll start a group, and then I'll hand it off to somebody else. And then I'll start a brand new group from scratch and then hand it off. And I've got a couple leaders who have done that with me, where it's just organic. We start a group and then we go to something else. But that's my biggest frustration to me personally now, is finding the right leaders and the right hosts who are willing to give the time to put into a good small group.
Yeah. Hey, James, what do you got, man?
Yeah, you guys are all talking about, having these seasonal life groups, and that is something that has never been a success. Maybe that's just my culture. Maybe I'm doing something wrong, but sometimes we'll try to start a life group seasonal, and then it just turns. We have 11 life groups right now. And all of them have been going on for a while. Well, the main ones, about 7 of them have been going on for 3 or 4 years. One's been going on for 5 or 6 years. So it's we've never had the success in our culture of doing seasonal. I've tried it before, and it just flopped. So there was no success, and people want that constant, that's assured that it's always going to be there. So now I have the leadership to run that, who are willing to keep going with that. I understand that everyone does. So I guess I'm saying that is, there's multiple options of doing life groups. It doesn't just have to be seasonal. For those who like the constant thing, that does work for some church cultures.
Yeah. Chris, what do you got, man?
Hey, Jason, when you start a life group, do you get somebody in charge and then have them go out and find people, or do you usually get like a team together? How do you do that?
So I want to address you and James. So what we do personally is I will personally approach someone and say, have you ever considered being a small group leader? And they'll say no, because nobody just wants to sign up for stuff like that. And I'll say, hey, I think you would do great with this. I think this is really something you can do. In order to be a teacher, you just have to know a little bit more than the people that you're teaching. I can't tell you how many people I know who are adjunct professors that are studying like the week before their class goes. All you have to know is just a little bit more than the people you're teaching. And I said, for a small group, you just have to go out, and you don't have to have a Bible college degree. It's actually preferred that you don't have one. That could get you into more trouble, by the way, anyway. And so I will talk to guys and just try to include them into trying to sign on. Hey, I've got a host home, but they need a leader, or I've got a leader and they need a host. And then once they commit to do it, I just tell them, I say, now I will announce this to the church, and I'll let them know we've got a new life group or connect group of empty nesters. And if you're an empty nester and you'd like a place to connect, this is the group for you. Email me for more information. And then I'll tell the leaders and hosts, hey, if you know people that are in church and they're not tethered to a Sunday school class or a connect group, why don't you reach out to them and invite them? Because it's just like when you invite people to church. If you do a broad mailing, you'll probably get some people, but a personal invitation is the way to go. And I feel like that's the same with groups. When you personally invite someone to come to your group, to come to your small group, to be a part of it, I think there's a higher probability that they take you up on it. And James, just to address the seasonal thing, the reason that's worked well for us is because I really emphasize to the leaders and the host, I don't want you to feel like you're signing on for 52 weeks a year to give us your home or to lead a group. But I do have probably 2 or 3 of our groups, and they're generally older groups. And, I'm talking about senior saints that have, got grandkids. They will do a group and they'll say, hey, look, we're going to meet every week. We'll probably meet 50 weeks a year. And I say, okay, well, that's up to you. If the leader wants to do it and the host home is fine doing it, that's okay. But during the summer, I'm not writing sermon review questions for the summer because we're officially on a break. So if you want to do a book study or you go through the book of James or do your own curriculum, do that. But we're officially on a break. Just make sure you don't run the wheels off of your leader or your host. But we do have groups that are like, you guys are on a break again. We're not taking a break, bless God. And it's like, okay, great. You do what works for you guys. But we do have groups like that they insist on not taking a break. I think one of the things that Keem said was, we don't take a break from relationship, but we may take a break from the formality of actually meeting as a group. And I think that's important. Even when my group, we've got 3 weeks left in this session, and then we're going to go on a break for the summer. But at least 2 times during the summer, we'll still get together as a group. We won't do questions. We won't do a book study. We'll just hang out and have a cookout or a pool party or something with our group. But I do think the seasonality works good for us, but I understand it doesn't work well for everyone. That's a cultural dynamic too. And it depends on the personality of your church. If you've got a more traditional background, they're not going to want to just on again, off again. And I totally understand that.
Yeah, we're more traditional in our practice, and that's part of it, definitely.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in. Larry, are you okay? Because I know Jason referred to senior saints. I just want to make sure you weren't offended by his comments and everything. So are you good? You all right? I'm just teasing.
I was worried about you, Dennis, not Larry. I was worried more about you.
I was trying to defer, Jason. Come on, man. So, hey, I love, Jason, you said something. I really think it kind of goes right along with the theme of the day, in the sense that Akeem was talking about stewarding the guests that we have, and being able to plug them in and connect them to community. I think probably one of the biggest challenges that almost all of us face is finding leaders and then equipping leaders and equipping them to steward that care group or that growth group or life group or whatever you call it, so that they then can steward the relationships they're building and invest in people. And I think the key in that is just figuring out a balance on how to equip our leaders to lead well. I think sometimes, and James, you said this a second ago with some leaders, sometimes people just kind of basically throw them to the wolves. It's like, hey, here's your group, go do it. And they're like, well, what am I doing? I have no clue how to do this. And I think sometimes if we as, pastors or those who lead in a ministry would equip people, then they can lead well. We just did this with 2 of our guys leading the recycled teenager group. And, after my dad passed away, that group just kind of fell to the wayside because he was huge in leading that. And these 2 men, they came and said, hey, if you ever want us to do a luncheon or lead a lunch for this group, that'd be awesome. And I was like, man, forget leading the lunch. You guys are going to lead the whole thing. Here's how. And at first they were like, oh man, we can't do that. But now, they love it, and they've grown in it, and every week they're developing. And the group hasn't grown as much as it did under my dad, but he had 50 years of ministry experience. He knew what to do and how to invest. But we've given them the lessons every week and the questions every week and all of the information. And I feel like they lead better because of that, and they're able to steward the guests that fall into their category or their group because they're leading well. So I think it goes back to, having that challenge of equipping people, but just taking the step of equipping them. So let's go real quick. There's those 2 questions left. As a group, identify possible solutions to help a group member overcome his or her challenges. We kind of talked through that. So number 4, who are 3 non-staff people you can share your vision for creating a culture and system for small groups? Maybe just kind of think about it in your context. Who are some people, who could you lean into to help create this culture of relationship building through groups? Anybody got some thoughts about that? I know sometimes we have, go ahead, Jason.
I would say, I think James alluded to this earlier, but it's not overnight. It's not a quick process. Like, it takes significant time. Just to give it an idea, is I was frustrated with some of the cliquishness in our groups. And so what I did is I just started a group from scratch. And I started in the fall. We went through the fall, we went through the spring, we went through the winter, all 3 seasons together. And then at the end, I'm talking to one of my guys that's been with me for a year. And right before the end of the session, I said, hey, I just want you to know, this is like catch and release for me. I said, I'm going to have 3 more weeks in this group. We're going to break for summer. And then I think you're the guy to lead this group. You've seen me do it for a year. And I released the group, and I left, and, I started another group cold turkey, because we've got people in our church that aren't tethered. And it's funny, we're talking about this today. We got 3 sessions left, and I met with a guy a week and a half ago and said, it is not my desire to stay in this group forever, but this is a great group. There's camaraderie. There's other young couples and young families that have come to our church in our area that are not connected. I want to reach out to them. What do you think about taking over this group? And they're like, oh, I don't know. And I said, well, I think you have the potential to do it. You've seen me do it for a year. And so what we're actually doing in our group tonight is I'm showing up to group, and I'm a participant instead of the leader. And he's leading the group with me there. And I may have him lead the group once in the next couple of weeks where I'm not there, just to see how he does. And if he gets stuck or he gets, nervous, I'm there. I can take over if I need to. But really, he's been with me for a year and a half. He has the potential to do it. And he doesn't know it, but I've been trying to equip him for the last year. This is the guy. You can take this group. You don't need me. You've got the questions. You've got the established crew that's already together. I'm going to step away and see how you do. So tonight is his first go around with ever leading a group, and I'm going to be there to help him and watch him. But ultimately, come fall, I'm going to be ready to start something new with a totally new group of people. And I expect this group to flourish because they've been an established group for over a year, and I think he can do it. But I think as far as equipping, you have to equip people from within. You can't just assign stuff and hope that it works and keep your fingers crossed, because it's not going to work out most of the time. It's a long, painful process sometimes.
If you do that, you'll get disaster. If you just throw previous pastor did that, he started a life group, gave it to someone who wasn't trained, and it became a gossip session. A hurt happened, and we lost everyone in the group. They left the church. You have to equip people in the right way. But to answer the question, I would say that some 3 staff members to share your vision for would be to look for people in your church that have that leadership capability, and then start bringing them close to you, and then train them without them knowing they're being trained, and just kind of figure that out, and then try to get them on your vision as you start to then spread them out. But
yeah, that's good stuff, guys. Well, we'll jump back out to the breakout room. And I appreciate the conversation today. So.
All right, we're just making it back into the main room here. Hope you guys had some good discussion in your breakouts. I'm going to kick it to our 3 moderators. Just give us a 60-second update about what we missed in your room. Tommy, I'm going to go to you first. If you don't mind, just give us the rundown on your room, and then we'll go to Chris and Dennis here in a moment.
Had a great group. Akeem was actually sitting in with us as well. Under the first question about what current structures are you using, Tim had a great, just a principle about building small groups. And that is that many times we think in a traditional sense of we get them in church, get them saved, baptized, and then we get them into a small group. It's kind of the end all. He challenged and reminded us that Small groups should not be at the end of that process. It really, in many ways, should be right up at the front end of that process, because as people develop relationships and community within the small group, then they will by a natural inclination begin to get involved in those other areas that we want so much. So don't look at small group as the end of a process, but maybe rather as the beginning of that process. Also, Tim had a great thought about the challenges that we face on building out small groups. And that is that maybe we need to rethink the way we do small groups, and less in that structured traditional way where you come in with the mindset of sitting as a group of people in front of a teacher for 45 minutes to an hour, and more like a true community where you're not just learning the Bible, but you're having community, you're having fun together, you're getting to know each other, and so at a much deeper level. And so that was a great challenge and a solution to that kind of a challenge.
Awesome. Thanks. Chris, you want to share about your room?
Sure. So we had some great ideas. Steve Miller talked about his 10-week process for small groups that he has. I really liked his idea on a small group emphasis Sunday, where they change the entire look of their auditorium. They bring in some banquet style tables, and they do the normal service where they have preaching and singing and everything. But then after that, they just have a small group time. So really thought that was good. He also emphasized small groups as an extension of pastoral ministry. And I thought that was a really good way to help offload some of the pressures of the pastor into those small groups. And so it's not just them coming to see you, but then now they can start building community and doing life with other Christians. So I thought that was really good. We talked about some issues about childcare, some older ladies wanting the top-down style of leadership. It's got to be sponsored by the pastor and through the local church and all of that. And so we talked through some of those issues there. And I really liked Steve's emphasis here again on work the problems as they become a problem. There's a lot of time we could get mired down and spend time solving problems before they actually become problems. And certainly you want to have some foresight, but wait till they become a problem sometimes to actually have to deal with it. And so really, I needed that personal encouragement there, and then don't be everything to everyone. So that's what we were talking about.
Nice. Great. Dennis?
Yeah, great talk today. Really, we had guys that kind of every end of the spectrum with starting growth groups right now or small groups, and guys who've had them for years. I think the two top things was the fact that everybody has to find out what works for you in your context. And, you know, it might be seasonal groups, it might be long-term groups, but make sure that building relationships is still the focus. And then, of course, what Akeem talked about, building that community to engage guests and keep people coming. And then the second thing, kind of just reminder for me, was to remember to equip your leaders or whoever you have with doing the small groups to be able to lead well. Because if we don't equip them well, they're not going to catch the vision of the long-term goal of this in keeping people and in getting new people to come and keeping that momentum growing. And so just good discussion, good thoughts from everybody today.
Great. Really appreciate Akeem being with us today. We'll definitely have him back. He joked about maybe he'll be invited back. Of course he is. We'd love to have him back a little bit later this year. I want to tell you what's up next, and then we'll sign off here. Next week, you do not want to miss Tom Rainer. The Tom Rainer will be with us next week, and he's going to be sharing. I'm excited about the conversation there. Final word, just a special thanks to Akeem for leading our talk today. Great discussion in the rooms, very practical application. And then thanks to all of you guys for joining us today. Hope you have a great week thinking outside the box. We'll see you next time.